Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Akimaloye in Lagos. There are a series of factors that are indicating negative in the Nigerian system, from the state of security, which is alarming, to the state of economy, part of which is raising some concerns. From the latest releases from the nation's data agency, the National Bureau of Statistics, the NBS, indicates that Nigeria's unemployment rate rose from 27.1% in the second quarter of 2020 to 33.3% in the fourth quarter of 2020. That is staggering and very worrisome. The NBS report further shows that the above data translates to 23.19 million unemployed people in Nigeria. That may be troubling, considering the implications of joblessness to crime rate. Bloomberg reports that the unemployment in Africa's largest economy is the second highest of a global list of countries monitored. You can see some of the data and what it translates to, and the state of the federation, which some of the highest numbers of unemployed people is being shown right there on your screen. You can see the unemployment rate, and okay, there you go now, the states with the number of some of the top states, 5 top states with the number of unemployed people, especially those that have grown over 1 million. The Buhari-led government promised that it plans to take 100 million people out of poverty in a decade. But the nation still carries the burden of the poverty capital of the world, of over 80 million people in poverty. Inflation rate is in a staggering double figure of 17.3% and carries a debt of over 32 trillion. A former vice president, Atiku Abubakar, wrote in a reaction to the latest figures of the NBS, he wrote, and I quote, "Have never felt so bad at being proven right as I am by the report from Bloomberg Business on Saturday, March the 27th, 2021, that Nigeria is to emerge as a nation with the highest unemployment rate on earth at just over 33%. We warned about this, but repeated warnings by myself and other patriots were scorned, and now this." So, what is the way forward for Nigeria? Before we get some other opinions on the state of affairs in the country as we have it present, because tonight we have some very influential persons in the country who are going to be sharing their views on the state of affairs. Let's first get to hear the president's views on these very worrying situation that we have found ourselves as a people. I'm being joined tonight, first and foremost, by the president's spokesperson, Mr. Femi Adesina. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Adesina, for your time tonight. We hear some of the efforts of this government in arresting what has become a disastrous trend of progression of unemployment and inflation. How does the presidency explain this, especially when critics say this government lacks capacity to handle the economy?
Thank you. Good evening. I think in any nation at any given time, it is not enough to just focus on the negatives. In any country in the world, if you want to focus on the negatives, there will be more than enough for you to see and to talk about. But then there are always silver linings in the sky from time to time. It's typical of Nigeria that when those silver linings come, we don't talk about them. You talked about inflation at 17-point-something%. When that inflation dropped to about 11% a couple of years back, we didn't hear a sound. We didn't hear a sound about it. When we went into recession the first time and we came out, we went the second time, COVID-induced, and we came out, not much about it. When you hear that our budget performance was about 97%, not much about it. All that we hear most times from critics, from the section of the media, are just the negatives. The truth is that in any country in the world, if you want to focus on the negatives, you will have more than enough to chew. So let's realize that in Nigeria, there are positives. In economy, in security, in all spheres of life, there are positives. It depends on the one we want to focus on. If we want to focus on the negative, we will have enough to focus on. But if we also want to see the silver lining and encourage ourselves and encourage our countrymen, there are also things to focus on. The choice is ours.
So tonight, let's focus on the two things that you have talked about. You talked about the issue of inflation. Let me remind you, Mr. Adesina, of where the country was when the government of President Buhari took over. In 2016, the inflation rate was 15.68%. In 2017, it rose to 16.52%. It dropped in 2018 to 12.09%. 2019, 11.4%. So if it is at 17% now, are you saying Nigerians shouldn't be worried about how this will affect the food on their table and their livelihood?
You just misquoted me there now. I didn't say Nigerians shouldn't be worried. What I said was that when we came to that 11.4%, there were no plaudits. You didn't make it a focus. But when we're in 17 point something, that is when it's now a focus. I'm saying that life is like being out on the sea. You take the rough and the smooth. Don't talk about only the rough, talk about both.
So you also talked about the situation of the economy and how we went into recession. The government of President Buhari, because we're talking about what you met and how you are handling it and how Nigerians are fed under the President Buhari administration and that of the APC, because we're now dwelling on the promises made and what has been delivered tonight. So, Mr. Adesina, for example, in 2015, Nigeria was not in recession. Nigeria went into recession less than 2 years of this government. And you are making a reference to the fact that we're not dwelling on it. Nigerians have been promised that their lives will be better, and that is what has gotten our attention. Tonight, let us look at one major factor. Can Nigerians, Mr. Adesina, believe the Buhari government? For example, part of the campaign promises is that it would create 3 million jobs yearly. Later, we were told 100 million jobs in a decade. But the latest figures show that things have gone in the opposite direction. More and more Nigerians are unemployed.
It takes us back to what I've just said. Yesterday or day before, I had a projection from the ITF saying that by 2030, ITF alone will take 7 million people out of poverty. And you have agencies of government like that all over that have given their targets of what they will do within a certain period. Why does that not become a talking point? It never is a talking point in our country. Rather, it is a accumulation of problems over decades that we continue to focus on. Let us keep our eyes on the sparrow in this country and look at the positive things for a change. It will help us. It will help our psyche. And it will also accelerate whatever the government is doing. It's not one government that will do it. If the Buhari government says it will take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years, that government would not be available for the next 10 years. It has just about 2 years and 2 months to go. It shows you then that it's a progression in Nigeria. And the onus is on us. Media, civil society, critics, opposition party, to focus on things that can be done to achieve that goal, not what is not being done.
I agree with you, Mr. Adesina, that sometimes in our lives you need to reflect on the good and sometimes on the ugly. So tonight, we remember some of the good things, and perhaps we have had this conversation about some of the good things. But when these figures that are troubling have come up, we'll be asked those who are in the leadership of this country and those who are worried about some of these figures are the average Nigerians on the street. Mr. Adesina, tonight, unfortunately, we'll perhaps dwell on some of those things you may not like to talk about, but those are the promises and the burden on this government. Take a look at those figures on your screen, Mr. Adesina. Unemployment rate is at 33%, which makes us stand out negatively as a country in the world. Unemployment count shows 23.2 million Nigerians are looking for jobs. They are capable of working, but they cannot get jobs. Poverty rate is 4.1%, showing that over 80 million Nigerians are poor. These are some of the statistics that are not there necessarily before this government came into power. And the question tonight, Mr. Adesina, we want to know what the president is thinking or what he is doing urgently when some of these figures came up in changing the trend. The trend is troubling, and that's why we have you to talk to us about it tonight. Is the president worried as well about what worries us?
No, you didn't quite get it. You didn't quite get it because if you recall, in 2015, build up to the 2015 election when APC was campaigning, the figure that was used by the then candidate Buhari was that minimum of 30 million Nigerians were out of jobs, were unemployed, particularly youths, and that his government was going to do something about it. That was in 2014, 2015. So don't make it appear as if it's something that a journey that just came out of the bottle. No, it had always been there. It has always been there. As at 2014, 2015, the figure used for campaign was 30 million unemployed Nigerians. It's on record. You can check it.
So let's dwell on what you promised. You promised 3 million jobs yearly. Since 2015, or let's even take from 2019, how many jobs have this government added, Mr. Adesina?
I wouldn't have that at my fingertips, but there is a Ministry of Labor and Employment. If you would just take the effort and ask the Ministry of Labor and Employment to supply jobs that have been generated over a certain period, particularly since 2 years when President promised that 100 million will be taken out of poverty in 10 years. You can now ask, by June 12 this year, it will be exactly 2 years that that promise was made. It's the duty of the media to find out what has been achieved in 2 years. And from the achievement in 2 years, you can then project that in 10 years, this will either be achievable or not. We can't just sit here and conjure figures. We have to work on facts and figures available to the right ministries and agencies. And one of those ministries is Labor and Employment. As a media house, channels can find out.
Mr. Adesina, we have found out and we'll put some figures together tonight. And those are the figures we're pushing to you tonight. But if you do not agree with those figures, these are some of the figures of the government itself. Agencies of government that have put out these figures. But this is another figure, Mr. Adesina, that I would like to put to you tonight. At the presidential rally, candidate Buhari at the time promised that he would ensure that the naira was equal to the dollar in value if he was voted into office. At the time, he said the official value of naira is almost that it was going to reduce the value of the naira to the dollar. But now we've had almost a double of that from 2015 to now. The question is, what is the president doing in keeping to that promise also? That is another fact, isn't it, Mr. Adesina?
But what you just said, Shehu, does not exist. It is fake, it is false, it is apocryphal. It doesn't exist. And the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, has debunked that before. It doesn't exist. It was never said. If it's said, there should be clips, there should be publications. It was never said. It was a conjuration by some people. And will it then become an albatross round the government's neck? That was never said. It was never promised. I challenge you to make the clip available where that promise was made.
All right. The president was reported to have said that at the Dan Anyam Stadium, Owerri in Imo State. If you don't agree with that figure, let's move forward, Mr. Adesina. And I'd like to ask you tonight, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar's statement depicted a tone of a government under President Buhari that does not listen to the counsel of others, and he says that patriots like him have advised the government in this regard, especially relating to the latest figures on unemployment. And he feels that part of the problem we're having is that maybe the government is not listening. Why have we found ourselves where we are today, Mr. Additional?
Thank you. The former vice president was in power for 8 years. Now he is in opposition to government. You can't take whatever he says as the gospel. It can't be. The question is, when former Vice President Atiku Abubakar was in government with President Olusegun Obasanjo, where did they take the country to? Where did they leave the country? There are clips I've seen myself on social media where he was saying some things they promised to do, particularly on power. Some people collected so trillion and didn't deliver. That they collected the money and didn't deliver. And the interviewer asked him, did they go after them? He said, unfortunately, we didn't go after them. So, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar was part of the rot this country became. So, he can't exculpate himself. He can't begin to sit in judgment over anybody. He played his part for 8 years, and they left the country where they left it. He can't claim, he can't, like Pontius Pilate, begin to wash his hands clean of what Nigeria has become.
So invariably, the presidency will not listen to a Vice President Atiku in this regard.
That's not what I said. The president will always listen to what is well-founded. Anything that is well-founded, anything that is not born out of negative politicking, the presidency will always listen. Isolate the good things, isolate the ones that are well-founded, and utilize them. But anything that is based on pull him down, anything that is based on negative politicking, will just be the opinion of the person that has said it. He will have a right to it, but nobody is compelled to then listen to him.
So, does the latest figures on the NBS give the president some kind of concern and perhaps headache because it's worrying? Some things that could easily spark or push him to urgent action. The current situation and trends of unemployment has been compared to the Great Depression of the 1930s by former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Obadiah Melafia. And he said, considering the figures and economic indices, is reported to have said that situation led to a lot of troubles where people even committed suicide. Is it worrying for the president? And what is the president saying about these latest figures from the MBS, where it's been compared to the Great Depression, where people committed suicide?
Well, you have a knack for bringing up people that carry bile in their hearts against their own country. The person you have just quoted, we know his position. We know untruths he has said about the situation in the country. And when they will call him to come and explain, he will start shouting persecution. You have a knack for bringing up those people. There are also other people who can isolate these issues dispassionately, without bile, without hatred, unlike that man you have mentioned. Then, talking of depression and all that, did you also see the statistics that Britain has had its worst economic performance in 200 years? Did you see the report that Britain has borrowed more than ever in the country's history because of challenges, because of pandemic, which is global? Did you see the report of that quarter that Nigeria came out of recession? Did you see the report of other countries? Do you see where they are? Let us cut some slack, give Nigeria some credit. Cut Nigeria some slack on these things. We are making progress. It may be slower than we want, but things are looking up. It's not all gloomy, as you said. Then coming to the MBS report. Yes, MBS is an agency of government. Is it not to the credit of this administration that it never tampers with the MBS statistics? It never tries to muzzle MBS. Whatever MBS has found, it releases. And government takes it in good faith and uses it to work. But let me tell you, it is a global phenomenon and not peculiar to Nigeria.
Mr. Femi Adesina, spokesperson to the President Muhammadu Buhari, thank you so much. We love our country. I'm a lover of this country, and I will not stop loving Nigeria. But as a journalist, we will keep asking the questions. And thank you so much for your time tonight on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Up next, we take a break, and when we return, promises by the Buhari-led federal government and the expectations are intense. Can the President and the APC meet up with the aspirations of Nigerians to deliver? Find out more after this time out. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us, and welcome back. After President Buhari appointed new service chiefs, expectation of many Nigerians is what the insecurity will be arrested. But we have seen a series of abductions in schools, and questions are being asked on the capacity and willingness to stop the trend. Some have advocated some legal and political solutions to these issues. Let me allow you to listen to the governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, on what he prescribes right here on the program during the week.
Swift response to all this level of insecurity. So for now, since there's nothing else we can do, even if we are those of us who believe that there should be multi-level policing and that the time has come for us to have state police, it's not something you can force down. It's something that will have to go through the National Assembly. It takes some time.
Why is it difficult, Governor, for your party, the ruling party APC, to restructure this country or even make it a matter of national emergency?
Well, a number of us, no doubt, believe that there must be, the issue of the structure of this country must be addressed. We are not running away from that fact. And as you know, even in our Constitution, restructuring is fundamental there. Now, the issue is, why is it difficult? It shouldn't be difficult. And I believe that the best time to do it is now. And because by His grace, Mr. President is running his second term, and Mr. President can, if there is a will, there'll be a way, and this can be done. And some of us believe that, look, it is important for us to do it once and for all, and let everybody come to the table, make your case. Yes, I know that at the National Assembly level, a number of things being done on amendment to the Constitution. Bring it out, let people know what you are doing.
You heard him there, the governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu. I'm being joined now by a senior lawyer in Nigeria, senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Muiz Banre. He joins us from Ikeja area of Lagos. Thank you so much, senior advocate, for joining us tonight. Perhaps let me get your view on some of the latest news that is in town, which of course I'm trying to get Mr. Adesina to speak to. And that is the latest unemployment figures that was released by the MBS. For you, you heard the debate and the conversation about it. What comes out to you on this matter?
Well, let me start by first and foremost appreciating the Bureau of Statistics for being honest so far. The body has struggled all over the years in the recent time to ensure the integrity of the data that they shown out to us. And if we go by that data, certainly it is worrisome. It is very, very worrisome and disturbing, and something needs to be done as a matter of urgency. Of course, certainly it's not unconnected with the various crimes that we are witnessing in the country today. Because the situation where we have over 80 million people below poverty level, you have almost 44% of our youth being unemployed, Of course, the saying is that devil finds work for an idle hand. So you do not expect anything less from what we are witnessing all over the whole place today. So it is a very, very disturbing statistics.
If you would prescribe a solution or a way out of this quagmire, what would that be, Mr. Banure?
Well, the first thing that needs to be done is that there seems to be policy conflict and policy somersault on the part of the government. For example, there is a major need to act in this concerted manner. Presently, what you find out is that most agencies of government and most parastatals and ministries, they all work in silos. In one breath, you have the Ministry of Humanitarian dealing with the issue of social investment schemes all over the whole place, trying to create employment and empower the people. And on the other, we have so many other agencies ensuring that people become jobless. And I give you an example. Let me use the simplest narrative of the agricultural sector, which is meant to at least absorb most of these jobless people. You find out that most of the policies you find there take the issue of poultry. We had the problem during the COVID where a lot of the grains that ought to ordinarily go into the production of poultry feed had to be diverted into the sustenance of the people during that period. We have a situation where a lot of farmers cannot even go to the farm to harvest the maize that is required, which is the major component. Then you now suddenly wake up as a central bank saying you are banning the importation of that maize without making alternate arrangement. Today I can tell you more than 70% of the small and medium-scale poultry are all gone. Today they vanish into unemployment market. You find also a situation where the consumption itself equally frustrate a lot of investment. A lot of companies close down daily as a result of the various policies. So recently, I stumbled on one of the countries engaging over 18,000 people directly, not to talk of the supply chain of that company being forced out of market gradually through the undue policy of the custom. Meanwhile, the Federal Ministry of Commerce, Federal Ministry of Finance is singing one tune, the custom is singing another tune. At the end of the day, what is likely to happen, which is the usual trend now, is that the funding will be forced to close down. And this is a daily occurrence. So there is a need to have a reconciliation of our policies. They must start acting in a concerted manner. But the way we are going now, I believe that we are not heading in the right direction. People will continue to be thrown out of the market regularly. And that is the major challenge that we have. So I believe that the major thing that needs to be done fundamentally in the first instance is to get all the federal government agencies coordinated in terms of policy direction. In fact, right now, I do not personally know whether there is even any economic team on ground dealing with the economy. All we hear is from the central bank. Central bank is not supposed to. We have a Ministry of Finance, we have economic planning department. We do not hear anything from all those words. It's central bank. How many central bank governors all over the world do you see doing what our own central bank governor is? All the policies come from central bank. And for me as a person, I can tell you without fear of contradiction, and I can validate it for you. There is always what central bank does most of the time that I've seen, even with the economy, is experimentation. Today you have a policy, in 2 weeks' time is reversed. Today we have another one is reversed. That's what we've been going through. And no serious infector will come into an unstable environment. Today, discuss with your banker and say, please, what is the position in terms of this my investor? I want to do that. What you hear from your banker is simply that, look, I'm not sure. This is it today. Tomorrow morning, we don't know what the central bank will do. No economy grows in that kind of situation. So, and if the economy does not grow, certainly the unemployment will continue to soar and inflation will continue to go up. Thank you.
That's on one hand, the issue of economy. And the issue of security, that is another worrying situation in the country. You heard what the governor of Ondo State said as regarding the way out. He's asking the National Assembly to take the lead. And he's also saying that President Buhari should have the political will to reform the system so as to fix the insecurity problem in this country. Do you agree with the governor of Ondo State on that?
Well, I agree to a certain extent, but not entirely. Substantially, there are more the other issues that are much more germane than that. And I give you an example of what is really happening. Certainly, the trigger of all this insecurity, as far as I'm concerned, is the issue of economy. poverty. There are too many people being thrown into the poverty circle every day, every day. They have to survive. When they look at it, they take the risk. And that is what we are witnessing. Except the economy improves, forget it. No amount of force we can use to stem the tide of insecurity in the country. That's the reality. I'll give you another example. Take the issue of climate change challenge. Years back, more than 10 years now, over a decade now, I've said this severally. When I was Commissioner for Environment, I used to say it equally, that look, they will get to a level that we start having conflict all over the place as a result of climate change challenge. For example, today, we continue to have higher and higher desertification in the north. What do we expect? People, all the people, will have to start moving towards the south for greener pasture. That will continue. And insofar as that continues, there will continue to be conflict because some people will have to be displaced. In the same manner, in a few years' time, people will start struggling over water. There will be conflict over water. These are some of the things that are not even addressed at all because somebody somewhere is not paying attention to it. So beyond the National Assembly and all those ones, except the economic improves, we are wasting our time. I did not even share that optimism. The only optimism I can share is for us to put all our hand on deck towards ensuring that we take more people out of the poverty level. That is the only way to stem the tide of insecurity.
Before I bring another perspective, opinion, view rather, into the conversation, let me get your view. I mean, you're a leader in the Southwest and you live in the Southwest. You do business in the Southwest. We've seen and heard of some agitations in the Southwest where some people have declared what they call a Yoruba nation. And there are reports that the agitation and the actions are backed by some leaders in the Southwest and monarchs also in the Southwest. Does this worry you in view of the kind of insecurity that we're seeing on one hand and this kind of agitation on the other hand?
Well, again, I agree with you. It is something of concern. It must worry every patriotic Nigerian. But unfortunately, the reality is that we cannot stop it. It will continue so far as there is unfairness in the system. There is injustice in the system. It will continue. That's the reality. So for me, what we need to do is to ensure that there is a sort of restructuring that will ensure equity in the nation. Without equity in the nation, all this agitation from the south to south east, southwest, everything will continue that way. But we must not be too sure. We must not be too comfortable that, hey, nothing will happen. At the end of the day, it's not. The same manner, that was the attitude of Soviet Union in those days, before eventually it became balkanized. That was the attitude that nothing will happen. They were just grandstanding. And the way things are going now, look at the European Union even itself. Look at Britain pulling out of it. Look at the situation of Greece and so on and so forth. So the reality is that as we are today, I believe, like the governor of Ondo State rightly said, this thing must be a national emergency, this restructuring. The people must be brought to the table to ventilate their various grievances. We must be able to aggregate opinion towards ensuring that at the end of the day there is a sort of balancing in the system. But today, too many issues are cropping up daily, too many. Let me remind, maybe you forgot it, 2017, you had what happened in Kaduna when the youth there said, look, all the Igbo people must leave and go back to their various zones. Remember recently too, Father Reverend Papa Kuka was asked in Chokoto to leave the north too. Now we have our own Sunday Igbo here. This thing will continue along that line. And the reality of the matter, which people seem not to even know, is that the call for secession, I've not seen anything that criminalizes it. Once it does not touches on the issue of overthrow of government, all the Nigerian Constitution says Nigeria shall remain indivisible, indissoluble, a single entity. That's all. Check all the criminal laws. There is nowhere where you will find out that if, for example, I say I want to secede now, I've committed a particular crime. I'm not aware of that. But we all know that eventually this will lead to a situation bordered on treason. So to stem that, to prevent that, therefore, it is inevitable. In fact, it is pertinent that at this stage, we must start sitting together and dialoguing over all these issues that people are interrogating and agitating all over the country.
All right. Just a moment, Senior Advocate. Let me bring in another perspective and a view of a former minority leader at the House of Representatives and a chieftain of the APC, Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu. He joins us from Dutse in Jigawa State. It's a pleasure having you on the program, Honorable. Let me get your reaction to some of the fears of some Nigerians, especially a former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who fears that the handling of the economy under this government, they might not be listening to patriots like him. What are your views on that? Handling of the economy under this government, they might not be listening to patriots like him. What are your views on that?
Good evening, thank you. I'm joining you from Birnin Kudu, not even Dutse, my hometown. So. Now, you see, I mean, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is a Nigerian, one of the leaders in this country, you know, and of course, this government is not bound to take advice from him. As a leader, as someone who has led this country, at least in the kind of position he had, there are certain things should not come out from him. Just if you remember what Femi was saying, it was during their time that $16 billion went into the drain for the electricity in this country. And Dimeji Bankwele was the speaker at that time. Investigations were made, but nothing happened. Now, this time around, we came in and met the rot, and we're trying to fix it. And this is not something you will do it in 1 day, or in 1 year, or in 2 years, in 3 years. And sincerity of purpose is the whole essence in this government. Are we sincere? Yes, we are. Are we transparent? Yes, we are. Are we doing things, you know, to ensure we don't go back to what was happening in this country? Yes, we are. But look, if you are in opposition, we were down the line in opposition, so we know what it means. We know what it means in opposition, which means if you're in opposition, sometimes you blabber. This time around, my elder brother, senior citizen of this country, I think he's blabbing. And we're not bound to take his advice, because his advice are tainted, you know, with malice, also probably anger that he didn't get opportunity to win the primaries and eventually win the election.
So does that, I mean, invalidate the worries? Or let me even ask you a personal question. Are you worried about that figure that has put us in the limelight, negatively, of course, as having perhaps some of the highest number of people who are unemployed and out of jobs in the world? And also, if you look at it vis-a-vis the situation of security in the country, if we make a list of the promises of the government of APC when they came into power and what we have on the ground in terms of statistics, they are staggering and they are worrisome. Honorable, how do you handle, or what do you tell your followers or Nigerians at large who are holding on to some of these promises?
Well, I totally agree with you that the situation in the country is worrisome. Yes, the security situation is worrisome. Yes, the unemployment rate is worrisome. But are we doing something to curtail these things? Yes, we are. What are we doing? One, in terms of security, we have, I mean, Nigerians have called for the removal of the service chiefs. They've gone. New ones have come. So we want Nigerians to give them a chance. And just last week, the armed forces called for a meeting of kinetic approach to security in this country, in trying to galvanize the support of the people. And we are doing it. And you will see in the next few weeks how in terms of unemployment, yes, it's true. I mean, the figures from NBS is true. We agree with them. But I also want you to understand the kind of injection into agriculture, into infrastructure that this government is doing to ensure people are taken out of poverty. And look, this is a global issue. Everybody seem to have forgotten the problem of COVID. It is a reality. The whole world shut down for probably 6 months. We are just trying to get out of it. This country went into recession, came out, back again, and so on. And as I said, we still come back to sincerity of purpose. This is a government that runs the country in a transparent manner. Whatever we're doing is for everybody to see. And so, you see, I keep saying that as people that are coming out from opposition, we know what it takes. We know that people in opposition can sometimes, in fact, most times, come out to say things that might not exactly be correct. And look, let me also consider, look, before we came in, there are certain assumptions that we didn't know. We never knew the situation was this bad. We didn't know. We didn't know that you live in a country where people, government officials will sit around the table and discuss sharing of money, of corruption. We never knew it was this bad. Now and then, corruption, as this government is trying to fight it, corruption is trying to fight back. So these are things, and look, we are all Nigerians. We know what's happening in this country. Every time this government tries to bring one thing in to solve the problem, another one will come up. So of course we are trying our best, and I assure you, people will see. In fact, it is because of the intention of this government that in 2019, Nigerian people still gave us a chance to continue to lead the country. And thank God we're doing very well.
All right, we'll take another breather. And up next, the argument about 2023 presidency and rotational arrangement has become a major national debate. We get the views of my guests on the program tonight. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Mr. Muiz Banire, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has been talking to us, as well as Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, a former minority leader in the House of Representatives and a chieftain of the APC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying with us on the program. Before I go back to Mr. Banire, let me get your view, Honorable Adamu Aliyu, on this issue that Professor Zulu has raised. He said power should go to the South. Do you agree?
You see, you know, everybody is entitled to his opinion. I, Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, am a member of the Strategy Committee of APC. And it will be unfair if I start saying my own personal opinion. But as leaders of the party, everybody is entitled to say his own. And at the end of the day, the party will sit down and decide which is the best for the party to do. Whether the, power shift to south-south, southwest, southeast, northwest, north central, this will be discussed later. To me, it is not time yet. We are trying to get more people into the party. We are trying to reconcile differences, because there are differences among, party stalwarts across the states in the country. So that's what we're trying to do. And for me, as I said, I don't have any opinion as of now. The leadership of the party, in consultation with other stakeholders, will sit and decide. And I'm sure whatever we decide, we'll rally around it and ensure APC, goes for the victory.
Don't you think that the issue of the understanding the power sharing model is one of the major problems in your party, in fact, on the political scene generally, where people are agitated about being left out or being not included in the scheme of things? This has caused some kind of infighting that we're seeing. In fact, on a general note in the country, some of the issues that Mr. Banire had raised, some people feel left out. If you're coming out early enough, don't you think that will even help your reconciliation process?
Well, that's your own opinion. In our own opinion, reconciliation starts first. And I'm surprised my brother Banire is speaking the way he is. He's one of the leaders, of the party. And I don't know whether he's still in the party. Because if he's in the party, there are certain things. He was our legal advisor. He was chairman of a board of in this country. And I'm shocked to hear some of his comments as if he's in opposition. And I don't think, it would be good for leaders like him to speak the way he's speaking. Honestly, because Banire is a very, very senior member of APC. And I have not heard that Banire has left the party. So, look, reconciliation, it's people like Banire and I sitting around the table, discuss about restructuring, if we need to restructure, what is restructuring, what does it mean to different parts of the country, how do we go about it, how do we talk to members of the National Assembly, how do we convince, because look, we still have a constitution in this country. There is a procedure. There are things that need to be done. No amount of brouhaha. And a lawyer, like a senior lawyer like my brother, saying that people calling for secession is not a crime. Yes, it's not a crime. But then what if you start asking people from other parts of the country, leave your part of the country? And we are called Nigeria. What happens if you say kill? How do you reconcile those kind of things? And when you start talking of secession, of course there will be price to that. Of course there will be antagonistic tendencies. And that's exactly what we see. So many people of northern extraction were killed in the southeast. They were killed in the northwest, southwest. And nothing has happened in the northern part of the country. Because why? Because look, we feel that we will not allow agents of destabilization, people who feel that we have to go to war. Look, even if this country needs to divide into 10, 20 pieces, let's do it around the table. I went to school in a country called Yugoslavia. Today, that country is divided into about 8 countries. They fought war, dirty war, which these kind of things should show us that, look, it is not good to overheat the polity. It is not good for you to speak in bad light to, another tribe or another religion. We are all what we are by birth. And then God has made us to be in Nigeria today. Even if tomorrow we are going to be different countries, let us please do it in a civilized manner. I don't agree with my brother saying calling for secession is not criminal. Maybe legally, maybe, but then leaders need to speak in certain ways. Leaders need to speak in a way that it will bring, because me and Banire are elites. Me and Banire have no problem. We laugh, we pray, we do things together. But down the ladder, if the elites don't put ourselves together, then the country will be in trouble. So I call on my brother Banire and people like him that feel secession is not criminal. Yes, it might not be, as I said, but then we should please tread carefully in this.
All right, Honorable, it does look like maybe you were not in the same WhatsApp group when Mr. Banire left. The last time I interviewed him, he told me that he has since left the APC. In fact, from what I understand, he's a member he's a member of the NCF, one of the groups that have come up to say there needs to be an alternative voice in the country against what we're saying today.
I honestly apologize to my brother Banire. I didn't know he has left. I wish you luck wherever you're going. And we'll still come to, I personally, as your friend, will come and bring you back to APC.
Let me allow Mr. Banire to respond to what Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu has said, especially his view on the issue of secession, and also maybe you can respond on the issue of the rotation. Where should power go in 2023?
Well, let me start first and foremost by thanking my brother Honorable Aliyu. Honorable Aliyu, I've since thrown into towel and returned to my traditional cocoon, which is the civil society. And that's where I am now for now. But beyond that, I believe that for equity's sake, I agree with Professor Babagana that power certainly must come to the south. That is my position. And the party itself, I believe, should look, although I must say that the constitution of Nigeria as well as the constitution of the party does not make any provision for such. But the understanding, or gentleman that people always put it, is that, look, this thing should rotate so as to give some measure of sense of belonging among the different components of the country. And I think it's just fair enough that this should be done. That, I feel strongly, should be the position.
On what basis are you proposing this?
Well, it's fairness. It's just fairness that we all want to be one. That's the reality. Everybody wants to be one. We want to be patriotic. And to be patriotic means that we have different components. We have diversity in the nation. All of them must partake in the art of governance. If you know me by nature, personally, I do not ordinarily support anything in form of reversive discrimination by way of quota system, federal character, and all those stuff. But the reality of the matter is that in the midst of zoning, you see we find competent hands within each region or each zone of the country. And it's only fair that and equitable that this power shift must take place if you still want people to have that sense of belonging and to tame, like I said, this agitation for secession and all the ancillary incidents around it. Because for me, if, for example, we saw what happened during Obasanjo's period, maybe you forgot that when OPC came up about this kind of secession agenda, you know what Obasanjo did to crush them? Of course, that shows you to a certain extent that truly people want to be together. They want to live together. Of course, there is strength in unity. But the reality is that this must certainly be around the issue of equity, fairness, and justice. Always. Right. And the only way to navigate is to dialogue. And this dialogue is what people are calling restructuring all over the country, that there is a need for us to sit down and renegotiate some of the issues that are agitating the people in different sections of the country. It doesn't mean that it's only South that is agitated. I'm sure some part of North are agitated, the Middle Belt are agitated, even some core North are agitated. So it's all over the whole place. The best way to continuously ensure peace in the society, therefore, is to make sure that there is this aggregation of opinion of everybody.
Mr. Banner, we need to go. We're out of time. But I'd like to ask you anyways, because I know your friend and your political leader at the time, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's name has been thrown up several times about 2023 presidency. What's your view? You think he should run? You think he's a good candidate? What are your views? Quick one.
Well, in the first instance, he has not told anybody that he's running. But for me, if he's running, why not?
All right. I think we'll leave it there. Honorable Adamu Aliyu, 10 seconds, your final thoughts.
Why not?
All right. I think we'll leave it there. Honorable Adamu Aliyu, 10 seconds, your final thoughts. Why not?
Well, honestly, there are some things that I agree with my brother. This country belongs to all of us. And any party that wants to win should look at equity, fairness. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think any APC or PDP will do anything that will jeopardize its chances. So when we get to the bridge, we cross it.
Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, former minority leader in the House of Representatives, APC chieftain, thank you so much for talking to us. And as well as Mr. Muiz Banure, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Enjoy the rest of your evening.